just start. You don't have to have it all figured out. You don't have to do it perfectly. But the more plant foods that you're building onto your plate, and the more you're minimizing these animal foods and these processed foods that are making us sick, the better off you're going to be.
What's going on, everybody? This is Klaus here from Plant-Based Veganism with Rich Roll.
Good to see you, Klaus.
According to Men's Health magazine, you're the world's fittest vegan, right?
Yeah, right? I would take quite an issue with being dubbed the world's fittest vegan. I'm a fit vegan. Hardly would call myself the fittest vegan, though. Plenty of super fit vegans out in the world.
Do you think it's like a conspiracy to make vegans look less fit? That they named you? I'm kidding.
Well, I think it generates traffic when you have a hyperbolic title.
And you've got a good story, right?
That's for you to judge.
I think you've got a good story. Like, you've come from adversity, and you've been through a lot, like different kind of careers. If you just kind of talk about that.
Yeah, sure.
Seconds, it'd be cool.
So I'm 51 now. When I was 39, I was 50 pounds overweight. I was a classic junk food addict. I would just eat anything in sight. Classic couch potato, kind of sliding into middle-aged. A little depressed about my life, and certainly not fit or interested in health or wellness or anything related to the vegan movement, I can tell you that. And I had a health scare shortly before I turned 40, and it was a moment where I realized I needed to take inventory of how I was living, and that set me on a path that ultimately led me to the plant-based lifestyle, and that really changed my life in every imaginable way.
I want to talk about the lifestyle a little bit later, but can you talk about like your sporting accolades? Like, what have you achieved?
So I was a swimmer in college, first and foremost. I swam at Stanford in the late 1980s at a pretty high level. But when that chapter was over, that was it. And I also have another part of my story is a protracted battle with alcoholism that I think prevented me from reaching my potential as an athlete at that time. So I rediscovered fitness in my 40s and went on to compete in and place quite highly in a number of ultra endurance triathlons, most notably a race called Ultraman, which is a 3-day double Ironman distance triathlon that circumnavigates the entire Big Island of Hawaii over a 3-day period.
And more recently, you've I think in 2017 you achieved something pretty big, right?
Yes. Well, in 2017 I did a race called Otillo, as the Americans would say. It's actually pronounced Otillo. It's a Swedish event. It's the World Championships of something called Swim Run, and it's a race that takes place every year in the Stockholm archipelago, where competitors traipse across about 50 islands spread wide across the Baltic Sea. So you're swimming and you're running, jumping into freezing cold water and swimming across these waterways, and then scurrying up onto these islands, running across them and jumping back in the water. You do the whole thing in a wetsuit with your running shoes on. And yes, I competed in that this past year.
Do you think there is a correlation between coming from adversity and achieving a lot, especially in like the athletic world?
There's definitely a correlation. I can only speak from my own experience, but there's definitely a correlation between adversity and I think the drive that I have to push myself to my limits, both professionally and athletically. I've faced and had to overcome quite a bit of personal challenges over the years, not just emotional and mental, but spiritual, financial, like the whole kit and caboodle.
And what's been the lifestyle formula in particular with diet? So we're talking like just plants, right?
Yeah, just plants, nothing with a face, nothing with a mother, eating plant-based foods as close to their natural state as possible.
So what kind of food should people avoid then based on
People should avoid all animal products. They should avoid dairy. Dairy is not a health food, despite what you may have heard. And if I can go out and kill it at age 51 and do things athletically that most people are not interested in, I think it speaks pretty loudly to the power of plants to fuel you to whatever performance you're seeking to achieve in your own athletic pursuits.
Why do you think there are so many misconceptions about the vegan diet? I guess you're busting those myths.
Yeah, there's a lot of fear, there's a lot of misconceptions, and there's a lot of very powerful corporate interests that are very invested in keeping us wed to these foods that are unhealthy, whether it be red meat products, chicken, even fish, all the dairy products. This is huge business. And so there's a lot of money being funneled into ensuring that we are diluted into this idea that these have a place on a healthy plate.
Protein, is that a problem?
Protein, yeah, where do you get your protein is a question I get every single day. I get my protein from plants. We can go down the rabbit hole on all the myths and misconceptions about protein. But essentially, if you're eating plant foods, a wide variety of plant foods, you're just not going to have a problem meeting your protein needs. Most people are walking around consuming 2 to 5 times the amount of protein they should be eating, and it's just never been an issue for me. I continue to get stronger, faster. I've never had an issue building lean muscle mass, and I've been plant-based for 11 years at this point.
Wow. I feel like there's so much more information now about the plant-based lifestyle compared to 11 years ago. Could you just speak about that kind of not transformation, that like evolution of the movement, I guess you could say?
Yeah, it's been an incredible evolution. There's never been more interest or intrigue or fascination with the plant-based vegan movement as there is right now. That certainly was not the case when I began. And what's great is anybody who's watching this can go on Netflix or on YouTube and watch documentaries, and there's no shortage of amazing books out there that will answer any question that you might have. And it's been very gratifying for me, and I'm sure for you as well, Klaus, to see so many people jumping into this movement and experiencing the tremendous results that it offers. So I'm really optimistic and excited about the future.
What do you think like the key engine has been recently that has kind of driven that? I think film has been a big one, right?
Yeah, a recent slate of documentaries I think have been hugely impactful, from What the Health and Cowspiracy.
Are you happy with the way you featured in that?
Yeah, I love those guys. You know, it was great to have a little cameo in that movie. But I think also, I think that with this internet culture that we live in now, people's bullshit raters are very finely attuned, and they're able to sniff out the difference between fact and fiction. And I think people are sick and tired of being sick and tired. They're looking for something that's real, that's going to address their health concerns, that is going to allow them to live in a more sustainable fashion with respect to the health of our planet. And look, we're all born and bred, compassionate human beings. Nobody likes the idea of killing animals for our food. And once the lights go on and you realize you don't have to take part in that aspect of our culture, it's kind of it's an amazing epiphany that people have that sort of propels them to invest themselves more deeply in this lifestyle.
Mm-hmm, for sure. And for people watching, that might be like, I get what he's saying, I get what Rich is saying, but like there's a gap between knowing how to do it and actually like doing it. Like what would you say to those people?
Yeah, I mean, that's what my work is all about, is bridging that gap between information and action. And I think what really hamstrings people and prevents them from taking those actions is fear, and also perhaps this sense that if they don't do it perfectly, then they've failed. Everybody who's vegan or plant-based didn't just snap their fingers and do it perfectly overnight. It's an evolution, it's a journey for everybody, and that's gonna look different depending upon who you are, where you live, what your social circumstances are, what your economics look like. So my sort of edict to everybody watching is just start. You don't have to have it all figured out. You don't have to do it perfectly, but the more plant foods that you're building onto your plate, and the more you're minimizing these animal foods and these processed foods that are making us sick, the better off you're going to be. And when you start to feel the results, you'll be more emotionally invested in this adventure, and you can go from there. So don't hold yourself to a perfectionist standard, and don't allow that to be a barrier to just moving forward and jumping in with both feet.
For sure. I feel like we've spoken a lot about the diet aspect. What do you recommend for people that want to get fit and healthy?
For people that want to get fit and healthy, there's no huge mystery, honestly. Like, I think that the more you're eating foods that are very nutritionally dense, that are high in phytonutrients and micronutrients, the better off you're going to be. The more alkaline sort of forming foods that you eat, those are what are going to reduce the inflammation in your body and allow it to recover more quickly in between workouts. I'm a big fan of green smoothies that I make in a high-powered blender every morning with tons of kale and spinach and beets and berries, all kinds of fruits and vegetables, tons of fiber. And that seems to really fuel me and help me recover more quickly. And don't be afraid to eat a lot of food. It's not a deprivation diet. People who come to me and say, I'm trying to be fit and I'm trying to be an athlete, but I'm scared I'm not going to meet my protein needs or I'm going to wither away. That has not been my experience whatsoever.
What about your exercise split? What are you doing at the moment?
Right now, I'm not training for any specific race. I've got an idea that I'm playing around with in my head for next year that I'm not ready to talk about right now. So training right now is pretty chill, but I go out every day and I run, bike, or swim, or I hit the gym. I do core work, all the trails around here. That's my favorite thing to do is get out on the trails. So a lot of running at the moment.
Tips for people that want to get fitter?
Tips for people that want to get fitter. People say, what's the best exercise? The best exercise is the one you're actually going to do. It should be a love affair. It shouldn't be perceived as a burden. So I think the first piece of advice I would give to somebody is figure out what you enjoy doing that involves moving your body. It doesn't have to be this painful thing that you dread every day. It should be something that you look forward to. And yeah, when you're out of shape, sort of that period of trying to get in shape will require a little discomfort, but once you achieve a base level of fitness, I think you'll find yourself looking forward to it. And I think the key thing, and I think the thing that's been sort of a secret, not really a secret, but a recipe in my success equation is consistency. It's not about going out and just crushing it in the gym or putting in some massive workout. It's what you're doing every single day. It's the little things that you're doing every single day that are moving you forward in the direction of your fitness goals.
Mm-hmm. For sure. And what's your favorite part of training and your least favorite part?
My favorite part is just the alone time. It's like an active meditation. It's just a beautiful thing to be out on a trail at dawn and feel the sun on my shoulders and just the peace that comes with that is something I really look forward to. That's my favorite part. The least favorite part is probably when, let's see, what would be the least favorite? I love it all. Like there isn't really a least favorite part, but there are times where I don't want to get out of bed, and so then I have to really rely on my sort of reserves of will to kind of get me out the door. And I've developed some mental tricks around that, but when you can kind of overcome those barriers and just do it, I never come back from a workout and say, oh, I wish I hadn't done that.
Right. And actually, once you get out and do it, it's a lot easier than you think.
Once you're moving, then you're like,
it's the other life crap that makes it difficult.
Exactly.
Yeah, sure. So with veganism right now, there seems to be this kind of like mainstream appeal. Mm-hmm. I'm just wondering, whether there's been, you mentioned film earlier, but whether there's been anything in the last few months or year that kind of just really gives you hope for the movement.
I think it's really cool when you see people who are prominent in our culture adopting the lifestyle and being mouthpieces for it. Like right now, recently, will.i.am has adopted a vegan diet, and he goes on his Instagram and he talks about it with such passion. And for somebody of his stature who wields so much influence over how people think and behave, like his cultural significance is so massive. I think that's really cool. And we're seeing more and more of that, not just with musicians and entertainers, but also with athletes, not just, skinny runner guys like me, but professional athletes in every discipline, from the NHL to the NBA to the NFL. And I think that's really exciting because athletes hold this special place in this conversation, which is that it doesn't really matter what they say, but it's how they move their bodies. And when they perform at a high level, they become very powerful ambassadors of this movement.
Who are your favorite vegan athletes?
Oh man, that's good. I'm gonna get in trouble if you make me answer that question. I can't answer that question. There's so many of them out there, but I think it's great that you see guys like Kyrie Irving and Zdeno Chara plays for the Bruins, who's all about it right now. I think that's really cool. Look, the most accomplished ultra runner of all time, Scott Jurek, he's got a new book coming out called North, where he conquered the world record for the Appalachian Trail. Like, there's countless examples of athletes out there just crushing it in every conceivable way in their various specialties on a vegan diet. And I think that's just super cool.
Who's the fittest vegan athlete?
Who's the fittest vegan? I can't answer that question. I'll tell you who it's not. It's not me.
Thanks for the interview, man.
Thanks,
Appreciate it. Where can people
Always
find
great.
your stuff? You've got your podcast, which is killing it.
Yeah.
I'll link that down below.
So everything I do is at richroll.com podcast, Rich Roll Podcast. You can find we're now on YouTube, but wherever you listen to podcasts. And then I'm just at Rich Roll on Instagram and Twitter.